Tonight on Politicat, protests at Northwestern's Cutter campus as students react to a dean's comments.
And Jeff Sessions comes to campus, how students are responding.
Plus, healthcare havoc. We talk plans and proposals heading into 2020.
All that and more tonight on Politicat.
It's your politics right now. Good evening and welcome to Politicat. I'm Joey Safchik.
And I'm Justin Sweet with lots to get to tonight, so let's jump right in. Today, significant new testimony was released from a key witness in the impeachment inquiry. For the first time, Gordon Sondland, the U.S. ambassador to the EU, said he was involved in a quid pro quo with Ukraine. He reportedly had direct contact with President Trump about reasons for withholding military aid from the Eastern European nation. The testimony is a significant update to his October testimony that did not acknowledge a quid pro quo.
As more than half a dozen fires rage across California, President Trump Sunday vaguely threatened to pull federal funding from combating the flames. In a tweet, the president told California Governor Gavin Newsom he needed to, quote, clean his forest floors and get his act together. A quick fact check finds that the blazes in California have not burned down any forests. Just last month, Governor Newsom praised the federal government's help with wildfire management, but over the weekend he responded to Trump via Twitter saying, quote, you don't believe in climate change, you are excused from this conversation. Experts say the wildfires are a public health crisis, and solutions to the problem involve policy tackling climate change.
Ongoing violent protests in Chile are headed into their third week as protesters are calling for President Sebastián Piñera to resign. Several people have died and hundreds have been injured as Chileans protest economic injustice that they say has been present for years. Though President Piñera made attempts to rectify the protesters' economic concerns, the protests continue. This spring, Medill is planning to send students to Chile on a reporting trip. The school has already been in contact with them about the state of the protests and what it means for their program.
Students who were accepted into the Santiago program were sent an email the same day as we were accepted into the program. And that basically said that Medill knows about the current state of affairs in Chile. They assured us that everything was safe and that the program would go on as continued. I'm not necessarily worried about safety of us or the rest of the team. What I am worried about is them canceling the program. All students who are accepted in 301 have to fill out this agreement, and one of the terms of the agreement is that Medill will not reimburse you in the case that a trip is canceled due to a travel advisory or any other warning.
And Northwestern Cutter students staged a demonstration this weekend in reaction to controversial comments allegedly made by NUQ's dean. NUQ professor Justin Martin posted a series of tweets over the weekend that said Cutter Dean Everett Dennis dismissed Muslim students' concerns in front of dozens of faculty members. The students were concerned graduation was scheduled during Ramadan fasting hours. The dean's alleged response, quote, to hell with them. Farah al-Sharif, the spokesperson for the students, said their silent demonstration was about issues beyond the dean's alleged comments.
The tweets were just showing us how faculty can sometimes act but without our knowledge. And so that raises a larger concern of who is it exactly that's teaching us? So we gathered all these concerns that have honestly just been going on for such a long time. And we decided that we want to be the class that actually makes something happen.
NU College Republicans hosted former Attorney General Jeff Sessions tonight at Lutkin Hall. NUCR's Vice President Dominic Bayer, one of our regular guests here on Politicat, said Sessions fit their criteria for an ideal speaker.
We're really excited to bring Jeff Sessions, so we really had in mind that we wanted to bring someone who had plenty of experience in the federal government, both in Congress and the executive branch, and someone who is a rock-ribbed conservative. And I think Jeff Sessions meets all those checklists.
But NUCR's excitement isn't necessarily matched by all students on campus. Student activists took to Facebook to plan a night of action in response to Sessions' visit. As opposed to stopping him from speaking on campus, the event is focused on increasing youth civic engagement by encouraging voter registration. Bayer says because the night of action is focused on mobilizing students in a positive way, the two events can coexist.
Trying to channel all this energy that is negative towards Mr. Sessions and trying to turn it into positive action, I think I really admire that.
I know.
Now there's a lot going on outside of Lutkin Hall right now with the event just ending and that protest. Our politics director, Olivia Olander, is outside with an update. Olivia, what's it looking like out there?
Hey Joey, hey Justin. So basically this event was not supposed to be a huge disruption to the Jeff Sessions event, but what's happened here is exactly the opposite. Essentially, protesters have decided to surround the building and bang on all sides here, as you can see, and have been chanting throughout the address. I've heard from a reporter who's inside that you can actually hear this from inside the event. At one point, protesters rushed in, police rushed after them. So although this may have been intended to be a very calm situation or a voter registration type of demonstration, that's not what's happening here at this point. It's kind of small groups of protesters now, but that is just what the situation is here. I've been tweeting all night from at Politicat NNN on Twitter and from my own handle at Olivia Olander, Olivia Olanderr. So if you want to see some updates, we'll be there. Otherwise, back to you guys at the desk.
Thanks so much, Olivia. Now, to get another take on Sessions' visit to campus, I'd like to welcome Mia Mamone, editor-in-chief of North by Northwestern. Thanks for being here, Mia.
Yeah, of course.
So we've had a fair share of political speakers here on campus this quarter. Why is this the first time we're seeing protesters expected to be in the hundreds? We haven't gotten exact numbers yet, but why are they so enraged by Jeff Sessions?
I think it mostly is because Jeff Sessions is a big name person. He was obviously very close to Trump and Trump's cabinet before he was essentially forced out. I think it has to do with kind of the controversy that also came with the creation of the Facebook event that was very, it transitioned from protest to a night of action. And then I couldn't hear what Olivia was saying, so she might have mentioned this, but there's kind of a different faction of progressive students who are taking a different approach to making Sessions know that he's not welcome on campus. So there's a lot of buzz going on from various factions of people from all various outlooks on campus, and I think it just kind of all came to a head.
Now, Mia, the organizer of the protest was quoted in the Daily saying that Sessions' viewpoints are degrading to debate. Do you think there's a double standard here when it comes to free speech?
I mean, I think it's difficult. I absolutely think what he said is degrading and awful just from like a nonpartisan standpoint, but when certain people think certain things are up for debate and other people don't, it's hard to reconcile that. So I mean, where do you draw the line really is the question. I probably would like to play things more safe than sorry when it comes to like people's humanity. So I definitely understand that viewpoint, but it's also just so hard when even the conservatives and the Republican students on campus aren't all in agreement over the choice of Sessions.
Is the chaos tonight an indicator of deepening political divisions on our campus?
I think so. I mean, I honestly don't think this is a new thing. I think this has certainly been present for a long time. I think the opposition within the more progressive students we're seeing tonight is the more establishment, Democratic Party aligned students who kind of planned the night of action with voter registration and things like that, and then a separate group of students who are more intent on actually disrupting the presentation. I'm not sure if they were successful or not, but those people who are much more involved with grassroots organizations like Solar, Black Lives Matter, and You, who've been working really hard on a number of progressive issues, who kind of saw the other half of this as being very performative, very establishment. So I think that's not just something that's happening at Northwestern. It's an issue for the Democratic Party, or not even the Democratic Party, but just more forward-thinking progressive people as a whole. I think it's definitely a good example of what's happening right now.
Do you think as we move closer to the 2020 election, a year from now, that there's going to be more divisions on campus and society in general?
I think so, certainly. I mean, I think there are a lot of good Democratic candidates, but also I fully understand people who absolutely don't feel represented at all by any establishment Democrat or Democratic Socialist or, anyone who's a major player in the race. It's hard because, yes, we have to choose our options from what we have, but it's understandable that certain people feel left out, and I completely empathize with them for not wanting to conform with a candidate who they truly don't feel will represent them.
All right, thanks, Mia. We'll leave it right there and be back after the break.
At Northwestern, we're wildcats in every way.
Cheer you all the go. Go you Northwestern, fight for the sweet victories, for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
At Northwestern University, we are pioneering innovation and achieving excellence across every imaginable discipline. Northwestern University, the possibilities are endless.
This week, President Trump announced he will be moving his permanent residency from the state of New York to Florida. For more on this, we turn to Justin with this week's Money Minute.
Thanks, Joey. It was reported last week that in late September, President Trump filed the necessary documents to register himself as a resident of Florida. In a November 1st tweet, the president confirmed such reports, saying, quote, "I love New York, but New York can never be great again under the current leadership of Governor Andrew Cuomo or Mayor Bill de Blasio." Florida has traditionally served as a swing state in presidential elections, and Trump will likely need to carry the Sunshine State once again in 2020 if he hopes to be reelected. Because of that, some see the move from New York to Florida as politically motivated. But in reality, like many of Trump's decisions, it's probably largely motivated by money. State income taxes are non-existent in Florida compared to rates ranging from 4 to 8.8% in New York. Also nowhere to be found in Florida are estate taxes, which can be as high as 16% in the Empire State. Fox Business reported that moving from New York to Florida could save as much as $70,000 a year for someone with an income of $650,000. President Trump made $434 million last year, so it's easy to see how those savings could add up.
Thanks, Justin. This week, Elizabeth Warren released her plan to pay for her version of Medicare for All. Her plan estimates it would cost $52 trillion over 10 years and require $20.5 trillion in new federal funding over that same 10-year period. She says a portion of that funding will come from employers paying roughly the same amount of what they currently pay to private insurers to the federal government. The plan also proposes a higher wealth tax, especially on those with more than $1 billion in wealth, and a new tax on large corporations. The plan does not directly raise taxes on the middle class. For more on this, we want to bring in our panel. We have Mia Mamone, editor-in-chief of North by Northwestern, and Zach Miller of NBN Politics.
Hi.
What do we think the middle class is going to say in response to this?
You know, the middle class, there's a lot of priors coming into this. We're less than a decade out from the Obamacare rollout, which was marred by technical glitches and the embarrassing, if you want your doctor, you can keep your doctor, that didn't turn out to be true. But this is a very smart plan. She's been attacked on whether or not this would raise taxes on the middle class, and I think she handled that quite well in coming out with this plan in the past couple weeks. It's still a very big price tag, and the position that we will remove private insurers is fairly unpopular in the general country. But I think if anyone can stay on message, it's going to be Elizabeth Warren on this.
Mia?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think she's made it clear that she cares about middle-class families, and her plan would put the tax primarily on companies and the extremely wealthy in America, and I think that's what people want to see generally.
So Mia, Warren and Bernie Sanders have now both released versions of Medicare for All, but some other candidates have proposed less liberal versions, in particular Pete Buttigieg, who has proposed Medicare for All who want it. Who do you think the voters are going to respond to more?
I mean, I think it really depends. So, I mean, in my home state of Oklahoma, for example, the state chose not to take federal funding from expansion of Obamacare through Medicaid, and now we've seen how that has played out really terribly for the state. Even very conservative people are now starting to support Medicare for All, and I think they'll be putting a ballot measure on something of a referendum they'll be doing later this year. But yeah, I mean, I think when it comes down to it, like, politics is a huge issue, obviously, but people care about if they're getting care, if their children are getting care, if their families are getting care. And if they're not, then they're not. And I think that transcends party lines. So I think if they can spin it the right way, Medicare for All could be very appealing to people from all parties.
Do you think Elizabeth Warren's rise in popularity, some say a dramatic rise in the past few months, are going to hurt Pete Buttigieg's proposal of Medicare for All who want it?
I'm not really sure, because a lot of voters, they're still very pragmatic and they want something that's going to resonate in a general election, and this is largely preaching to the choir. How this message appeals to independents and more conservative-leaning voters who may want a separate candidate from Trump, that is yet to be seen. I think this is a terrific plan. It's going to increase coverage. It's going to lower costs overall, but I don't know if it's going to be more popular than Medicare for All who want it and give people that chance to opt in.
Does this plan help or hurt Warren when we get to the Iowa caucus, which is in less than 100 days? That's tough. I would say it does help her establish her credentials in the left wing of the Democratic Party alongside Bernie Sanders, and really separate her from the Joe Bidens, the Pete Buttigieg of the party, who want to stay in a system that would keep private insurance and really not shake up the healthcare industry quite so dramatically.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think it doesn't hurt Warren, certainly. You know, maybe it helps her, but I think she's known for being the woman, the person in this race who has a plan for everything. And yes, Sanders has released some of his ideas, but nowhere near as comprehensive as her, like, 9,000-word Medium post that she did detailing her Medicare for All plan. So I think it just is yet another thing that shows just how prepared Elizabeth Warren is.
All right, Mia, I've got a two-part question here. One, how feasible is this plan in reality? And two, if it were to go to Congress, if Warren were to be elected, would it even have a chance of passing? Because there's a lot of discussion over this plan, you know, people against it, people for it, but does it have an actual chance to become a reality?
Right, yeah, I mean, that's a great question, because Medicare for All is great, but no one's going to get it if they can't get that through the House, through the Senate. So I don't know. I think no matter what, no matter who goes to office, no matter whose plan gets anywhere close to going through, there will be a lot of changes made before anything ever happens. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to get 100% of what they want. I think both Warren and Sanders hope to shoot for as high as possible for 100%, hoping they can get maybe, like a lot of people have mentioned this, you know, hoping to get 70% rather than trying to set their bar maybe lower, less controversially, but then end up only getting like 30% of what they want. So I think her goal is to reach as high as possible. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. It's very hard to say.
What obstacles do you think Warren and her plan are going to face between now and the election?
Well, it is certainly a very high price tag, and you have to remember back when Obamacare was still in the public eye, there was discussion of death taxes, which have since been totally debunked. But you have these unreasonable positions that people take, and these unreasonable assertions from people who really didn't want to see Obamacare get passed. And I think you're going to have similar obstacles where there are very reasonable grounds where you can dig in and say this plan, it might not be fully funded, it's too much change too quickly, it's going to disrupt this multi-billion-dollar industry, and you're going to have these unreasonable attacks on the plan from people who just want to see it fail.
Mia, what does it say that we're 90 days away from the Iowa caucus? And this is one of many intricate, deep policy discussions that this group of candidates has already had.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's crazy that it's all happening so fast. I'm surprised that more candidates haven't gone into as much detail as either Warren or Sanders, because this is such a hugely important thing. It's literally life or death for so many Americans, especially obviously like low-income Americans who don't already have private insurance now. I hope what Sanders and Warren are doing will spur others to put forth their own plans. May not be as, progressive, may not be Medicare for all, but I think the more options that people have in general, the better. So I would like to see everyone putting out as much information as possible before the caucuses.
All right, we'll leave it right there. We'll be back after the break.
At Northwestern, we're wildcats in every way.
Northwestern, break right through that. With our colors flying, we will cheer you all to go. Go you Northwestern, fight for victory, sweet victory, for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
At Northwestern University, we are pioneering innovation and achieving excellence across every imaginable discipline. At Northwestern University, the possibilities are endless.
We know the news can be a little overwhelming, so we're here to catch you up on some news you didn't know. The Las Vegas City Council will vote tomorrow on whether it's legal to sleep on the streets in certain parts of the city. If the ordinance passes, people sleeping on the streets could be fined up to $1,000 or face up to 6 months in jail. Vegas joins scores of other cities, including LA and Chicago, that have toyed with similar laws. A federal appeals court says cities can't make it illegal to sleep on the sidewalk when no homeless shelter is available. Las Vegas city officials say they would only enact the ordinance when there are shelter beds accessible. Advocates for the homeless say criminalizing sleeping on the streets, especially when shelters are overcrowded, can make it harder for homeless people to find jobs or save up for rental payments.
Kentucky is holding its gubernatorial election tonight as sitting Republican Governor Matt Bevin faces off against Democrat Attorney General Andy Beshear. According to polling, Bevin has been one of the least popular governors in America for several months, prompting President Trump to make numerous visits to the state to campaign for him. Attorney General Beshear is the son of previous Kentucky Governor, Democrat Steve Beshear. With 88% of the precincts reporting, Andy Beshear is currently leading with 50.2% of the vote, while Matt Bevin has 47.9%.
All right, and now we're bringing our guest back for this week's edition of Headlines. I'm going to read you 3 headlines. It's a fun game we play here. 2 of them are false. 1 of them is true. They're all a little outlandish. You guess the real one. Okay, ready? Round 1. Option 1. A man is suing Twitter for $1 billion because he says his account is being suspended and that's infringing upon his right to worship Donald Trump as a demigod. Option 2, a city in Denmark passed a budget that subsidizes free veterinarian care for dogs after new research came out concluding that owning a dog increases the owner's productivity in the workplace. And finally, after daylight savings time ended this past weekend, a mayor from Northeast Ohio held a mock funeral for sunlight, which attracted more than 5,000 residents.
I think the $1 billion lawsuit against Twitter is the real one.
The Trump demigod?
Yes.
Okay. Mia?
I honestly think the Ohio one is the real one. Ohio's such a weird place. Like, why not? No offense, Ohio, but it's my guess.
Zach is right.
You can sue almost anyone for almost any amount. So that's a very good choice there. All right, we're going to go round 2.
I was going to say, I would go with the Ohio one if it weren't for the more than 5,000 residents. I don't believe that 5,000 people would give up their time.
That's fair. That's an important detail.
To mourn the sun. I would.
just about anything can happen on Twitter. I felt reasonably confident.
That's also fair.
Social media.
All right, we've got a second round here. First, a few dozen cities across the U.S. are planning to roll out special lie detection technology by 2024 that analyzes pupil dilation of people trying to get into clubs in hopes of cracking down on fake IDs. Second, we've got executives from Animal Planet reveal that they're trying to coordinate with some 2020 candidate campaign managers to host a mock debate between the candidates' pets. And lastly, the White House Halloween party had a station for children to help build a wall. Which one do you think is true?
The build a wall on Halloween sounds just tacky enough.
Build a wall on Halloween?
I did see the news about the build the wall on Halloween. I think that is the true one.
Okay, you are right. I was afraid you were going to say that you saw it too, because then you would spoil it for Mia, but it looks like you both get it right.
No, it just fits.
Yeah.
A lot of the candidates do have really cute pets.
They do.
I would tune into that
I think we should reach out to Animal Planet.
and make that happen. All right.
Absolutely.
Politicat, where ideas come true.
All right, thanks so much for for playing along, and we'll be right back with tonight's final word.
We got it.
At Northwestern, we're wildcats in every way.
Northwestern break right through that. With our colors flying, we will cheer you all the go. Go you Northwestern, fight for victory, sweet victory, for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
At Northwestern University, we are pioneering innovation and achieving excellence across every imaginable discipline. At Northwestern University, the possibilities are endless.
On Friday, the popular sports and culture website Deadspin lost its final employee. The resignation ends the turmoil that gripped the site for the past week. For tonight's final word, we're taking a closer look at what the folding of Deadspin means for online media in the 21st century.
Before it collapsed, Deadspin was run by GO Media, which operated the site and sister sites like The Root, The Onion, and Gizmodo for a private equity firm. The trouble for the website started last Monday when editors received a directive from GO's editorial director to, quote, stick to sports in their coverage. He resigned today.
In protest, writers published content deliberately unrelated to sports, including stories like 3 good dogs I met and there are only 2 acceptable wedding dress codes. After this, the interim editor-in-chief was fired. Writers and editors quit in solidarity.
Now, sports content was not the only point of contention between Deadspin and its owner. Deadspin has written critically in the past about GO Media's hiring practices and ad policies, but the Stick to Sports memo was the last straw.
In recent years, the number of media organizations owned by non-media companies has only gone up. BuzzFeed, Medium, and Cheddar are just a few of the online outlets owned by venture capital firms. Also increasing are the number of news outlets owned by massive multinational conglomerates or individuals with wealth comparable to a company. 90% of American media outlets are owned by just 5 companies.
As Deadspin's fantastic flameout shows, changes of ownership at the highest level can have implications for content, and more often than not, media company owners have interests aligned with profit margins and not journalism. With the growth of online media, already slim profits for media organizations are shrinking further, encouraging owners to cut resources and staff and increase advertising. As a media consumer, you will soon have to consider the impact of where you direct your attention and consumer habits. Media owners will continue to profit off of whatever content is pumped out of their assets, but outlets will collapse in the process.
That's all the time we have for tonight. For all of us here at Politicat, I'm Joey Safchek.
And I'm Justin Sweetwood. Thanks for watching. Good night.